God. It was grade 10. Feeling really cool about not being a freshman anymore. So I was sitting in a math class and I had to fart really bad. So I get the smart idea to hit my desk really hard to cover up the noise, right? Well, I hit the desk too early. Yeah, everyone looked to check why I banged the desk. Then farted. Only liquid sheet came with it as well. Grade 10 pay class, we had to learn how to dance. All boys were paired up with girls. As I'm dancing with my partner I said, "Hey, what's up?" And she replied with "Ugh," and just left the gymnasium. Christ. 10th grade. I was sitting in English class right in front of the bookshelf at the back of the classroom. It was the start of the class and we always did SSR for 15 minutes, silent sustained reading. In a way I was blocking the bookshelf and a very tomboyish rocker named Jane yelled at me to move forward. So I jumped forward instead of scooting forward while sitting. It was a chair desk hybrid, and as soon as I hit the ground, an earthquake happened. Like a real earthquake. Worst timing ever. They never let me live that down. Quite probably missing an AP exam because I got the date wrong. This morning. Duck everything. When I was 17. 7 of my so-called friends, including my recent at the time ex, surrounded me and spent a good 45 minutes telling me how much they hated me. How worthless I was. And how they were only friends with me out of pity. These were people I'd spent years with. And they were my closest friends. I hadn't done anything to anger them, they were just being assholes. We always had fun together and I had literally no warning that this shitstorm was coming. One of them was kind enough to give me a ride home. But none of them spoke to me for the rest of high school. Except to say nasty things to me in the halls. Almost the worst part was that one of them, the one I'd known the longest and was closest with, just stood there and offered no words in my defense. The only good part was that I didn't cry. Which surprised me at the time and still surprises me now. I did end up reconnecting with my ex later. And he apologized profusely for what they had done. He's the only one who made that effort. It certainly made the 10-year reunion awkward. I have some serious self-esteem issues because of that encounter. I hate people sometimes. Asking out my best friend and getting straight up denied. She was in all my classes. I did that as well. Things were 1000 awkward on a scale of 1-10 for the first week. But now we are back to being perfectly normal like it never happened. Me and my first girlfriend at 16 went to the beach one day and made out. And dry humped in the process, getting sand all over our teenage bodies. A buddy of mine told me to come over to his place with her and shower off. I'm thinking, hell yeah, getting clean before our date night. We get there and he informs me that me and the girl can go shower together because his parents aren't home. We nervously go upstairs and start to strip down out of our clothes. This was the absolute first time I had seen a naked girl up and close personal. I was so nervous, and with a raging hard on we stepped into the shower. She asked me to wash her off with soap. I lost it right there. And bolted out of the shower, leaving my naked GF behind. I quickly clothed and drove home. She was so confused. My last image of the scene was her holding a bottle shampoo with a bewildered look on her face. That's right. Nothing happened. I was so scared at seeing a naked girl for the first time I just quickly left. Nobody has let me live that down that has found out about it. 10th grade, I sharted myself at the urinal next to my friend in the morning. No one else was in the bathroom, thankfully. If you ever got to fart when pissing at a urinal, be careful. I threw out my boxes in the trash and went commando that day. Worse was someone found the sheet-filled boxes and threw them in the hall. No, knew they were mine. Asked out my friend whom I was madly in love with and she gave me a pat on the back and said sorry. That really sucked. Also, not my moment. There was a freshman that brought 2 bags of soda to school because the seniors had told him freshman Friday was a party and he needed to bring sodas. Freshman year, I forgot that it was my day to go in front of my class and speak about a hero in my life. I started to talk about my autistic brother and it made me super emotional and I was getting all teary-eyed. The teacher saw what was going on and let me sit down before it got too bad. I guess he just caught me off guard, so I had to think of something quick and that was too sensitive a subject. But I got an A for the assignment, so that was nice. We had a substitute teacher who was, for lack of a better word, ghetto as shit. And every time she got to my name, Isaiah on here? Why you'll be lying? Isaiah on here? You saw the Key and Peele sketch and thought that was hilarious, but that sheet was real life for Aaron's everywhere. Also that skit happens to be hilarious. Edit. Oh. I should add, I graduated from high school a decade ago. I got way too stoned, and being the stupid kid I was, I went to my class. Teacher immediately sends me to see the principal. As I am waiting to see him, I start feeling really sick. He takes me into his office and right before I sit down I vomit all over his desk. Freshman year I was homeless after leaving my home state in hopes of work for my mom. One day I somehow pissed off this asshole and later in class he punched me a few times. I wanted desperately to toss his fat ass out of the window, but the shelter me and my mom was in had a rule that if we got into legal trouble we'd be kicked out. In my entire shitty life I've never felt as helpless as that day. Senior year, due to bad luck and misplaced trust, I was homeless again. Had to go back to that shitty shelter for a year before we were able to move out. Those two tied for first place. This was around the time that iMessage came out. Me and my GF were trying it out and as stupid teenagers we decided to send dirty pics. Little did we know her mom and dad's iPhones were synced to the same computer. So they all got each other's iMessage messages. I sent a big dick pic to my GF's parents. I went to some sort of intervention meeting with my mom and a couple of teachers there, discussing my failing grades. I wasn't a perfect student then. Instead of trying to help me, one of them decided to say, "You don't belong in this school at all." This teacher here decided he could run his big mouth instead of helping. I broke down in front of my mom and my teachers. I have never felt humiliated and embarrassed in my life. My English teacher wanted to kick me out because he thought I was a waste of space for people who want to take the advantage and enroll in dual credit courses. Remember, I went to a school that offers dual credit classes for students who want to graduate with a HS diploma along with an associate's degree. TL. Doctor, I was humiliated by a teacher in front of a group of teachers and my mom. I had really bad swamp ass when I was in high school and my school didn't have AC. Got called out for it in between classes and people called me swamp up until graduation. Pretty happy my ass isn't a hose anymore. I got taken to the front of assembly in front of the whole year group and got a round of applause and handshake from the head teacher for something that somebody else did. The worst part was every single one of the 200 people in there knew it wasn't me that should have been congratulated. But everyone was too embarrassed to say anything. I just stood there and smiled while they clapped. But I would have quite happily died. I was embarrassed that I had to walk up in front of 3,000 students to get my perfect attendance award. Felt like a nerd for actually showing up to school every day, and just the thought of being up in front of all those people made cringe. In the small town where I am from, people kill themselves all the time, but this one case really got to me. Me and some friends were walking from the locker room to the football field for practice and saw our buddy sitting with his head in his hands in the parking lot. Two cops were standing over him in silence. As soon as I saw it, I thought Julie is dead. Julie was his older sister. I don't know why I thought this. Specifically Julie and not someone else in his family. Eventually Kevin got into the cop car and drove off. Our coach pulled us all aside and told us that Julie had killed herself and practice was cancelled. I was particularly close to Julie since she was close with my older sister. Less than 2 days earlier I was sitting at a dinner table with her and her family eating spaghetti and she seemed fine. The worst part for me was finding out that Julie's little brother, who was only 9, found her hanging from a tree in their backyard. I can only imagine how ducked he must have been mentally and emotionally. I still feel strange when I think about why I instantly knew Julie had died. I still don't really know what to think about it. when I got accused of winning the class president election from bribery. Apparently one of the other candidates heard my buddy say he'd only vote for me if I gave him a peso, our classroom currency that we turned in 4 grades. I laughed and made some joke that was probably hilarious to a 15-year-old about selling his beans. And didn't think about it again. Fast forward a week. And somehow I had been elected class president. I was super excited. And when I got called to the principal's office I assumed it was because there was a first meeting or something. Instead, the principal, vice principal, and the Spanish teacher are all there ready to grill me for my alleged bribery. Needless to say, I was blindsided. To that point in my life, the worst thing I had done was take the bigger piece of a candy bar I was supposed to share. And suddenly I was facing suspension and public removal from office. Say what you will about politicians, but I learned very quickly that the spotlight isn't always the place to be. I told the principal what really happened, but he didn't believe me. He made me wait in another room while he called my friend in, who told a corroborating story. All told, I was there for almost 4 hours, and by the time they let me go I had missed most of my classes for the day. Also, there was the time I fell asleep in theater practice and peed myself. Sophomore year in my Catholic high school, I finally lose my virginity to the young lady. She was under the impression I had done it before and was good. But I gave her the most disappointing 2 minutes of her life. In my haste to enjoy her woman bits and lose my virginity, I failed to use a condom. So we go about our lives and due to my poor performance, we don't hook up again. A couple weeks later, I catch a cold and stay home from school. In theology class before lecture we would pray and the students can say special intentions for prayers. My best friend, knowing I had sex with this girl and she was in the class, makes a fake special intention for me saying I was at the doctor for treatment of an STD. The girl runs out of the class to the counselor's office and tells the counselor the tale. The counselor calls the principal into her office. They proceed to then call my parents at work and demand an explanation as to why I am knowingly spreading STDs. They demand a meeting with my parents, me, the girl and her parents. Word gets around school as to what happened. And I'm sitting at home watching Maury, completely oblivious to the events unfolding. Class an awkward next couple of weeks trying to explain everything to the school, to my family, to the girl, to everyone actually. TLDR, my idiot friend jokingly told my school I had an STD, and all the wrong people believed him.